Hey folks, I'm live. This is Sam Jeppy. I'm live here on Wednesday, August 19th at 5 p.m. in San Diego, California, and I'm going to be talking about the explosive September 2020 Vedic Astrology forecast. I'm going to be talking about some very important shifts that are happening, not the least of which is the lunar nodes moving from Gemini and Sagittarius into Taurus and Scorpio. Also going to talk about Mars. He's in Aries and his retrograde cycle. So this transit of Mars through Aries and the retrograde cycle. I'm also going to be talking about Jupiter and Saturn turning direct. They've been retrograde for months, and they're both going to turn direct now, stationary and then direct. We'll be talking about these things. And again, very important shifts are happening, right? And we look at these moments when, these outer planets change signs, particularly the nodes shift. Even when these retrograde planets, when these outer planets, Saturn and Jupiter, when they change direction, it means there's an important shift. And also Mars, the other outer planet, means outer, meaning it's on the outer orbit of the Earth. So all three of those outer planets change direction, including the lunar nodes. So I also want to just let people know, as you can see, there's the thing scrolling beneath the beneath the screen. And this is a free class for those of you who don't know and who haven't gotten the class yet. A lot of you have, but that link, nodes in Taurus and Scorpio.com, see, I just clicked it there. Nodes in Taurus and Scorpio.com takes you to this page. It's a free web class. It's more than an hour. People love this class because it really is going to show you how the nodes in Taurus and Scorpio are going to operate for you for the next year and a half. And again, it starts September 21st. It's the best way to stay centered during this transformative time for you to see how the nodes in Taurus and Scorpio will operate for you and all 12 signs. Again, you can just go there. You just either watch the instant replay, you can watch it instantly, or you pick one of the next dates that it's available. But also, you're also going to learn about the nodes in Taurus and Scorpio historically, like the last time the nodes were in Taurus and Scorpio. What happened? I'll give you a hint. That's when we had the Gulf War, the Iran-Iraq War. We also had the SARS virus. We had a few other really important things with law enforcement. And then I even went back to the previous nodes in Taurus and Scorpio. Then I'm also going to talk about the eclipses during that nodes in Taurus and Scorpio time, because we're going to have eclipses, the first one coming in December of this year. So again, be prepared for that eclipse. And then also remedies and practices for this time. You want to be able to stay grounded and practical. So I give a lot of good remedies and practices also. So again, you just click that link, or you can, again, nodes in Taurus and Scorpio, nodes in Taurus and Scorpio.com, and it takes you right there and you do it. So I'm sure you'll really like that, and I can't wait to get that in your hands and get you watching it, because again, I do it this way because I want it to be a real dedicated space where you're not looking all over the place. And I put together, it's got a whole manual and everything else. So let's jump into, you see, this is the chart for September 1st, 2020, which is in, 12 days. I started doing these a couple weeks earlier so that people can really prepare. So go ahead and share this. As you can see, I have the like and subscribe buttons and stuff up here. Subscribe to the channel, get notified, like this video, and share it with others as well, because I'm going to be going over these details, and people are really interested in knowing what's coming up. September is going to be a very transformative month. And this is, going to affect everyone, and we can see how. So as you can see, as we start September, in this class, or in this video, I'm going to go over these larger transits. I will do another video that just breaks things down day by day. It'll be September 2020, day by day. Okay. Mainly tracking like the daily motions of the moon and other things in an overall sense each day. But this is going to be the larger structures and the larger, themes that are shifting. Like when planets move retrograde or whatever, it's a whole different way to look at it. So you see, when we start here on September 1st, we start with Mars in Aries. And as you see, if I go back, you can see Mars is about to go retrograde. So he's slowing down. See that 3 degrees 25 seconds on the 31st, 3 degrees 32 seconds. It's only 7/10 of a degree. It's basically stopped. This is stationary. So Mars is stationary. Jupiter is also stationary. 23:27 for Jupiter here. 23:25. He's still, even Saturn stationary. 142, 144. All these planets are stationary. You look, Saturn went from 142 to 140. It's basically stopped. Jupiter 23:22 to 23:20. Again, Mars is moving 353 to 356. They're basically stopped. So the month starts with these 3 outer planets, Saturn, Mars, and Jupiter, all pretty much stationary. Now, Mars is stationary retrograde, which means he's about to go retrograde. And Saturn and Jupiter are stationary direct, which means they've been going retrograde and they're about to go direct. So again, what this really means, though, is that when the planet slows down like this, when it's about to change direction like this, by the way, just a hint, they do that when they're trying the sun. So when planets are trying the sun, these outer planets, that's when they change direction. That's when they start to go retrograde. So this Jupiter here, when he's trying the sun, he's about to go retrograde or direct, depending on which side of it he's on. So here again, when they, but before they change direction, they stop stationary. So when it's stationary, the energy becomes very concentrated, very fixed. They start to build up a lot of momentum, and they're actually stationary for almost the whole month. I'll even bump this through to a month, and you could see by the end of the month, I'll push this forward 1 month. You could see, especially Jupiter and Saturn probably have barely moved 1 degree. So Jupiter has gone to 24, Saturn is still 1 degree. So they're going to be at the same degree for like the whole month. Look, they're all, Jupiter's 24, Saturn 20, Jupiter 23, within 1 degree for the whole month. Now again, that just goes to show you whether they're retrograde or direct, they're stationary pretty much the whole time, which means for pretty much all of September, the outer planets of Jupiter and Saturn are pretty much not moving at all. Again, Jupiter stops retrograde before Saturn, but even when they stop going retrograde, they don't really start moving forward very fast yet. They station. Keep that in mind. So what this means is Jupiter stationary direct in Sagittarius and Saturn in Capricorn shows that this, first of all, both of these planets are very strong in their signs. Jupiter is in its own sign of Sagittarius, so it's very powerful there. So we're really fixed and fixated and fixating on what's inspiring us, what's motivating us, what is, what do we believe? What do we believe in? We're really fixated and obsessed and focused on what is it that I really believe. I have to see through this massive data that has been so overwhelming, which we've had with K2 in Sagittarius and Rahu in Gemini for the last 1.5 years. It's just all these ideas and this data, and I can't really sort it out intellectually so much anymore. What do I really believe? And what is the purpose of my beliefs anyway? So here's what I mean. Jupiter and the sign of Sagittarius especially is the part of our beliefs and our belief systems that inspire us, that give us hope, that give us, again, inspiration. So in the midst of gathering all these details about the world and communicating with each other about it and getting all this data, what is it that I really believe? And what's the point in believing things? And do my beliefs have any impact on the world that I create, the world that we have, how much do my beliefs and the worldview that I choose affect the world itself? Or is it just a lot of data that, okay, I'm right, and because I'm right, I'm going to inflict that on everybody? What is the benefit of that? Is that really worth much? Again, so we're thinking about what am I hopeful about? And what is the purpose of my hope and my beliefs anyway? Is it better to just be right and then fanatical in these beliefs and then putting them out there and like a sword at everybody? Is that really helping? Is that really advancing and creating the inspiration and the inspired purpose and the point of it all? Or is that just me trying to be righteous and dogmatic? This is a big issue right now, as we all know. I'm going to talk about the nodes changing signs when it moves from Gemini to Taurus. But those who've been watching my forecast for years know that I've been saying this since Rahu went into Gemini, is that eventually we weren't going to know what to really believe, or we're not going to know what's exactly factual, like what the real facts are. So we're getting down to, in the sense that we all have an idea about what's going on, but by now the facts are so blurry, even in our own mind, that we're not sure what's exactly correct and what's exactly true about the world. But we do know what's exactly true and inspiring and hopeful about our life and our world and our nature, and at least we should. And Jupiter in Sagittarius is really trying to get us to that truth. And it's also cutting in a kind of fanatical way. We're seeing the fanaticism around that too, where people are really just jacked up on their beliefs and very fixated on them and fixed in them. So whenever planets station, they can become quite fixed and fixated. And so we're going to be seeing that for the most part for most or all, I should say, of September. Again, Jupiter's going to change direction. Technically, I'll move this forward I'll just move it forward days. It's about the 12th, I think, that Jupiter goes. Yeah, it's the 13th. Okay, we'll put it the 13th. Jupiter literally stops moving. Again, 2315, 2315, 2316. The next day he moves forward 1/10 of 1 degree. Again, it's still virtually stopped in the sky. But the retrograde motion, the backwards motion, stops on the 13th. So it stops literally retrograde on the 13th. So after September 13th, we'll start to see Jupiter, we'll start to feel like we're ready to be moving forward more on what inspires us, and hopefully spreading more of that inspiration and purpose and saying, look, we don't get the choice. We don't get to choose between the greatest thing ever or the worst thing ever. If that were the choice, it would be easy because we would choose the greatest thing ever. But usually our choices are lesser of two evils, especially once we become a grown-up and we have to make difficult decisions about things that aren't always so cut and dry, particularly like social issues, political issues, other kinds of things where situations are vague and we're not sure what to do. Often we're choosing between the lesser of two evils if we're not really sure. And this is important at this time, because the lesser of two evils is less evil, and less evil is better than more evil, especially when less evil means just for our own mind. And this is a lot of where our energy is going now is, okay, I'm not really sure what's happening, all of the rhetoric and all the ideas that I'm hearing, but I have the choice to at least believe, and not just believe blindly or without taking any action, but for the betterment of my life and my mind and my world, to advance what could be the hopeful cause here, the hopeful outcome, rather than just collapse into cynicism and bitterness and do nothing but spread cynicism and bitterness and expect that everything is going to be as bad as it could possibly be. We always have to be prepared for that, but that's always the case anyway. And that's where Saturn comes in here, which I'll bring up in a second. But the Jupiter part of us now is saying, look, we have a choice. And in fact, it's our responsibility to remain hopeful, remain optimistic, and do everything we can to improve whatever situations are that we're in. But every great saint and spiritual teacher says, it's your job to remain hopeful. It's your job to find meaning and purpose. That is your job. And if your meaning and purpose is just being crashed by the external world, then you're not learning the lesson, because we're not just a product of the external world. In fact, the external world is obviously a reflection of all of our collective will. So to think that having a positive attitude and putting forth something where, let's say as it relates to something like politics, well, these aren't the people I would have chosen, or this isn't the thing I would have chosen, but it's better than the alternative, and at least it's going to be more positive, and it's going to be more this or that or whatever. That's what we're left with most of the time. So Jupiter is the part of us for September that's really focusing on remaining hopeful, optimistic. And if we're not, then examining our cynicism and bitterness and frustration and how that's coming back to us. What are people saying to us who don't want to hear all that stuff? Again, is it because they're just stupid and ignorant or whatever? Maybe. Or is it just because they choose to have an optimistic outlook on it, even though they're also still aware of the difficulties and the dangers and the problematic situations? We can do both. And again, this is one of the things that is often lost in this world now that I notice more than anything, is everything is so polarized. There's so much fanaticism. Everything is either black or white, good or bad. It's either the gates of hell or unicorns and ice cream. And if I can't have unicorns and ice cream, then everything is the gates of hell. Every person is either the savior or the demon. Nothing has nuance. And this, again, this Rahu going through Gemini has been trying to reveal this thinking pattern in our mind. And frankly, to me, it's this deep mistake that we have because we're so inundated with information and things we don't understand. Rahu going through Gemini has been here to exhaust us and to show us, look, you're just so you don't know what you're thinking, what you're doing. This is why, as we keep it, as it's finishing up its transit, the conspiracy theories get more pervasive, the thought viruses get more rampant, the confusion gets more exacerbated, and ultimately we're left with the opposite end, which is to say, well, what can I do about these people who are believing all of these things that I can't explain away? I can't convince them they're wrong, quote, or whatever it might be. I can't convince them that this politician is right and that one is wrong, or whichever side you're coming down on all that. So what I can do is remain hopeful for the good of all and put that forth and remain vigilant to what I think is wrong in the world and speak as kindly and humanely as possible. Because again, that's the other thing that's really gotten lost, is just the nastiness that has taken over, especially, in all of our dialogue. And so again, this Rahu going through Gemini is about the shift. It's about the move out of the Rahu in Gemini, Ketu and Sagittarius, and it's going to move. It's on the 21st. Move this forward. On the 21st, Rahu moves into Taurus. And as I said at the beginning, you want to really understand this, especially as it relates to your sign and all 12 signs. I see this as very positive overall, in the sense that it's going to do what Rahu does in Taurus and Ketu does in Scorpio. First, it's going to stabilize the Rahu end of the node, where it becomes stable and it calms down after all the volatility of Gemini, all the emotional, all the mental volatility in Gemini. Again, all the ideas, they all can mean anything. Who knows? Who knows what any of it means? So all of it could be legitimate. When it goes into Taurus, it becomes more practical, and we become more desiring of things to be more practical and stable and workable and usable and tangible. And hopefully we'll be more sensitive, because Taurus is the sign where we become very sensitive to each other and a sense of values, common community. common, language, even things like food and culture. Again, and I'm not just talking about the world. I'm speaking about these in more collective terms because I don't know everyone individually, but run these frameworks individually in your life as well. And I am bringing that down to that because so much of our polarized world right now, polarized around these ideas, larger ideas, are affecting our personal lives as well, where people are losing friends. They're just really demonizing everybody. Everybody who doesn't think like us is a brainwashed sheeple kind of thing, and I do it too. We all do it. It's hard to not see through. It's hard to communicate when you're feeling like you're not heard at all because someone has projected something onto you, then you project it back onto them. I think and I hope that Rahu going through Taurus is going to stabilize that more. It might come through a crisis. And again, I talk about that on the Rahu, on the webinar that I mentioned, the Rahu in Taurus, Ketu in Scorpio webinar. But coming together, like what happened the last time we came together around that war, around the Iraq war, after the 9/11 attacks, the country rallied together, even the world rallied together around that. Again, this is one of the dangerous rallying cries. But in Taurus, we rally around something when Rahu's in Taurus. And what it also does is it's because we want a sense of stability. We want a sense of structure. And if anything, the last year and a half, last couple of years, everything has been so chaotic that we're just dying and sort of desperate for structure, stability. And I think this is going to affect the election for sure. People's motives, people's motivations. People, again, tired of the drama and the chaos and is it this theory or this idea or this random thing? Everything is just every day, there's a new drama going on. So I see this transit of Rahu into Taurus overall as being pretty positive relative to where we are now in that sense. But again, when we're seeking safety and comfort and stability, we are also easily coerced. Meaning, for example, we're dealing with this pandemic and this and that. And it's like, okay, let's all be safe. Let's all get a vaccination. Okay, vaccinate everybody. Something like that. And people wanting that. Again, my views about that is I think they should be available and people should get them if they want them. They should not be forced at any time, in any way, under any circumstance. Should people get them? Should they be forced? For example, as the virus has gone on, particularly in the U.S., where it's not been handled, those who have rebelled against things like mask wearing and social distance have themselves created more of a circumstance to where now we're ready to accept a vax much more easily because we've failed to get it under control. Other countries where they've gotten it more under control, it's easier for them to say, well, we don't really need this yet. In the US, it's still raging, but we also have like the flu season coming, and there's already talks about in the US of educators and different people having to get a mandatory flu vaccination in order to go to school. That's also part of our culture anyway. But the point of the matter is, as a principle and as a point of contention, perhaps, and frustration, we have to be careful not to accept an encroachment on our freedom in order to feel more stable and safe. Again, Rahu in Taurus is going to want that safety and stability more. I think it's going to be beneficial in personal interactions, maybe, and in some ways in social interactions, but there can be a price to pay. Now, again, I talk mainly about the Rahu in the Taurus end because that's the leading edge of the node. Just like the last couple of years, we've seen more than anything, it's been more like Rahu in Gemini has been leading the ideas, virus, storm, hurricane, a hurricane of ideas has been Rahu through Gemini, right? Opposite that has been Ketu in Sagittarius, where we're turning away from our previously held beliefs. That's why people, again, one of the biggest things I've seen is people are really rebelling against their previously held beliefs, particularly this sort of political one. It's very interesting to see people who, I used to be a radical left wing and now I believe in QAnon conspiracy. Like this is total Rahu Ketu polarizing. I was a fanatic this way. Now I'm a fanatic that way. Complete textbook. And there's so much of it. And I see it and I'm just like, okay, you're pretty much programmed. There's the program, the woke program. I was woke left. Now I'm woke right, but I'm woke. It's like, no, it's called programmed. It's fanatical. It's extreme. And the easiest thing for the mind to do is to go from one extreme to the next. First, I was brainwashed in thinking that the left was the greatest thing. Now I've woken from that, and now I'm brainwashed to think that the right is the answer. I'm sorry to be rude if it's upsetting to anyone. I'm talking about anyone in particular, but this is one of the things I've noticed so much. There's even a whole thing going on about it now. This whole thing called conspirituality it's textbook, this kind of thing. I'm so spiritual and sensitive. This is the kind of leftist quote. Again, everything comes around right and left political stuff now. I'm so sensitive and this, that. Now I realize how that's terrible. Now it's this. I was woke left. Now I'm woke right. Typical. And so total Rahu in Gemini, Ketu in Sagittarius. But the Ketu part often shows the shadow, the hidden part. We just see the Rahu end going, this thing, now that thing, now this thing, now that thing. But opposite that is the Ketu going, this thing that you were doing was ridiculous and stupid and horrible. That would be the Ketu if the person was on the left saying, you're an idiot for believing all this leftist stuff. That's Ketu, just destroying that belief. So go over to this one, Rahu. Okay. That's what Rahu and Ketu do. They bring these extremes. So what I'm saying is that hopefully as the nodes move, we're going to move out of this triggering thinking and the response to others triggering and all that, and calm down. The first will be Rahu and Taurus again, because the Rahu end is leading the node. That's the one we see the most. So we're going to want more stability. We're going to calm down around all of our internal triggering. And Ketu in Scorpio is going to then go deep into our, into our fears, our stresses, our fears, our fear of not being in control, our fear of being vulnerable, our fear of being, dominated or lied to, or, mainly dominated. And so Ketu is going to try to turn away from that and then find things that are safe. Again, this is why I say there's also that shadow side of the Rahu and Taurus, where it's great for bringing us together and great for wanting to stabilize and to connect and to nurture. But the shadow side is, so I feel safe. So I feel safe because there's scary things in the world. And Ketu is trying to turn away from that so that we feel safe. But the real power also spiritually of this nodal shift, and again, I talk about this in great detail in the webinar that I already talked about. Nodes in Taurus and Scorpio.com, is that on a spiritual level, it's very powerful because, again, especially Ketu in Scorpio is really great for penetrating deeply into all of that emotional triggering and frustration that can happen with Scorpio, where, again, we sense it's all these imagined fears. Ketu has a lot. Ketu is like a laser that just drills down into all of that and is not afraid to encounter it, right? And then Rahu in Rahu in Taurus brings that desire for stability and peace and contentment is really the word for Taurus that I mainly use. In yoga, it's called santosha. So that santosha, that contentment and peace is really big. So we're going to be wanting more contentment and peace, not more data and answers and details and stuff. Again, Rahu through Gemini has been that. What's it all mean? What's it all mean? This. Exhaust ourselves. Rahu and Taurus is like, I just want to be peaceful now. I just want to feel relaxed, peaceful, settled. connect with the people I love. We can feel that shift happening now, right? I can feel it. We can all kind of feel that the Rahu in Gemini is starting to wane a little bit. Wane at least as far as, again, wanting to feel something that's going to be stable again. Okay, so again, that's after September 19th. I thought it was 21st. Yeah, 19th. Okay, September 19th is when they shift. So after September 19th, and for a year and a half, we have that. And again, I just want to say again that it's if you just joined, this is where you can, if you want, you can get the, it's a free class. You go to nodes in Taurus and Scorpio.com and you wind up here. And again, you just reserve the class. You can watch the live replay, or you can pick one of the times. And again, the live replay, watch instant replay or those times. And again, as you see, it's from September 19th, 2020 until March of 2022. That's a lot, right? That's a long time. It's a year and a half. Nodes in Taurus and Scorpio for you and all 12 signs. Nodes in Taurus and Scorpio historically. And, you know, one of the things I talked about here was all of this desire for safety and stability and the things that surrounded the last time. Because it wasn't just that we had the Gulf War, but that's also when the U.S. established the Department of Homeland Security, the largest reorganization of government since World War II. A whole new department, a whole new law enforcement. By the way, these are the troops that, for example, President Trump is using now to go into the cities. He's not using military. He's using Department of Homeland Security, like from Border Patrol and stuff. There's a huge military bureaucracy that was built up the last time Rahu went through Taurus. Okay, and it was to feel safe, this whole safety thing. I talked about a lot of other things as well, but this nodes in Taurus and Scorpio historically, you should understand this and understand why. It's not just the outer manifestation, it's what it's bringing up in our consciousness and why we're thinking that way. There's a lot of people when that was happening, and I was one of them, who was like, this is the worst thing ever. I frankly cried a lot when we started that war. And there were people for a year and a half, 2 years, were just like, oh my God, this is going to be the worst thing ever. But the country rallied around it for the most part. It was just sitting there like, oh, are you kidding me? Nodes in Taurus and Scorpio Nakshatras. Again, I forgot to mention this before, each of the Nakshatras. So as Rahu moves from Mrigashira, then into Rohini, then into Kritika. As Ketu moves from Jeshta, then into Anuradha, then into Vishaka. I talk about each shift. Very important. It'll be in each nakshatra. Then, of course, the eclipses during that time. We have one December, I think it's December 14th this year, where the sun will be eclipsed by Ketu in Scorpio. And then the remedies and practices and a lot more. So please avail yourself of that. It's free. Okay, so as you see here, let me go back. So as we saw, Mars turns retrograde. Let me just see. Okay, so Mars turns retrograde on September the 9th. So Mars is retrograde on September 9th. Now, he's just in Aries the whole time. Now, he goes up to about 4 degrees and then turns retrograde. So one of the things we need to really be careful of in September is this anger and frustration, right? Because Mars is in Aries, and it could really boil over into some, if not social unrest, certainly personal unrest, certainly personal, literally fighting and anger, and especially feeling like we're ready to avenge and get revenge and fight again and, you know, blow things up on a personal level. I see this, I mean, certainly on a collective level as well, these things could always happen. But, you know, we're very triggered, and there's a lot of frustrations now, and particularly, again, because everything is so polarized personally now. and we tend to demonize the other. We tend to, dehumanize. And when we do this, it just gives us license to abuse them. Like if we think you're just a dumb sheeple, narcissist, fool, if you're just that subhuman, then me just dumping on you like you're a piece of crap, whatever. You're not worthy anyway. You're not at my level anyway. That's a lot of, again, I talked about the kind of piety of Jupiter here in Sagittarius and the problems with that. Well, Mars is the one that gets angry about it. This is why, I did a recent update about bringing the fire. That's why bringing the fire, that's what it means. And Mars brings the fire to destroy something. That's what Mars is about. Anything where something's getting destroyed like that, it's Mars destroying it, particularly blowing it up or some vengeance, some act of cruelty and violence. This is Mars' domain. And Mars, we're trying to defend and fight for what we think is right. And many of us feel like, almost all of us at this point, almost everybody feels like their sense of right or whatever they think is right is not being listened to. In one form or another, no matter how you look at it, from the government, especially, we can see it. It doesn't matter. Let's say you're a Trump supporter. You definitely feel like right now, especially, I'm not saying this as blanket, but the fact of like wearing masks or doing all this stuff now, you're probably feeling like that's not right and you're getting frustrated with it. For example, if you're not, you're on the other end. I'm just talking about a gross issue and you're feeling like, look, those of us who didn't, let's say, vote for Trump or who don't feel like that way, we're tired of just being like called this or that and watching all this stuff. Like everybody, no matter which side, that's a political issue. But whether it's even about COVID, if you're tired of wearing the mask or you're tired of the people who won't wear the mask or whatever it might be, you're tired of the ones who say this, but then that or whatever. And so everybody's just kind of seething a little bit. And Mars in Aries is, in many ways, it doesn't mind bringing the fire and bringing the hurt, particularly if we feel like the other person deserves it. And that bringing the fire because you deserve it, again, that's very Mars. Because often the way Mars operates, especially the way it hangs out in the ego, I've seen this so many times, is, well, I'm not doing it I'm doing it to protect others, especially when we get into like avenging wrongs. I'm speaking out because of others. And if we carry that sword to protect others, we can do a whole lot of stuff to other individuals because I was just protecting others. It's not about me, I'm protecting others. And again, with that armor, and again, that's very much Jupiter. It can get way into the spiritual bypassing thing. I'm not really angry for myself, I'm protecting others kind of thing. So I would say for people, really be careful of that negative quality. Now, again, the positive quality, which is definitely there, is all this fire, just like that righteous fire of Jupiter and Sagittarius, is to really say, look, my sense of hope and purpose and meaning and belief is powerful. It's one of the most powerful things I have, is to choose to say, okay, I'm going to fight for the hopeful future, not just collapse into the cynical crap and get angry at everybody who doesn't believe what I believe. I'm going to hold a higher space and put it into practice. It's not just thoughts, it's actions. It's being gracious. It's bringing those things into action. Mars also, rather than taking those actions that are destructive externally, it's to internally destroy our own weaknesses, our own need to vindicate and have to take vengeance and get revenge and prove that somebody else was wrong and they deserve the punishment that we're going to give them. And again, this is big stuff. And instead, when we channel that fire into dharmic practices and actions like yoga. Again, I say like yoga. There's really not much like yoga except yoga. When we're doing or any kind of especially even with its Mars, like martial art or some kind of way to channel that aggression and do what we know is right, which includes not lashing out, which includes having restraint, which includes when we get frustrated with another person, instead of having to vent and dump that frustration on them because in our mind, oh, they're just too stupid to know, or they shouldn't have done that, or some kind of thing. We hold it for ourselves and go, why is this bothering me so much? Why am I'm the one who's angry here. It's hard to do that. It's one of the hardest things to do. Not venting our frustration is one of the hardest things to do. And it's the source of all of our problems with other people. If we could control our frustration and our anger like that, then every time we wanted to lash out at somebody, we would stop and hold it for ourselves. And that's what we're supposed to do with Mars and Saturn energy. They're both tamasic planets and energies, which means we're supposed to keep that to ourselves. With the tamasic energy, we're supposed to keep it to ourselves. We're supposed to keep our anger to ourselves. We're supposed to keep our fear and our control to ourselves. Not try to control others, which is Saturn, which I'm going to get to Saturn in a minute. Not try to fix others by destroying their weaknesses because you did this and you're stupid and you think all that. But return it to ourselves and use that fire to destroy our own weakness. So we're supposed to keep that tamasic energy to ourselves. The Saturn and Mars energy, our fear and our anger, we keep to ourselves. And Mars in Aries, again, one of the reasons it's so powerful is it's going to be bringing the anger and bringing the frustration. And so, again, when astrology is not understood very well, people can easily say, so that means now you're supposed to get out there and fight with everybody, or fight and fight and fight. You can fight. You shouldn't fight with people, but you can fight for causes. But when it comes down to people, Mars is not the one dealing with people. Mars is the one dealing with causes. The main cause is making yourself strong. The one that deals with people are the two Rajasic planets. That's Mercury and Venus. Mercury should be talking. Venus should be respecting. Mars, no. Mars is about action, which means I'm going to do this thing. But now when I'm interacting with people, I put Mars away and Mercury comes out and talks and Venus negotiates and accommodates. Not Mars. Mars is talking. It's not really a conversation. It's a confrontation, a conflict, an argument. And even if you're right, you're going to win the battle and lose the war because you're going to make an enemy. So this Mars in Aries, bringing the fire up here, again, I want to go back to the first things I said at the beginning. For the most part, all of these movements, with the exception of Rahu and Ketu's movement, all of these three, Mars, Saturn, and Jupiter, are basically stationary in the sky almost the whole time. So they're not really moving that much at all. Mars is moving a little bit more because he moves faster. But they're all kind of at the same place. And more than anything, it's going to feel frustrating and like they're boiling. But that's also great because it's a great concentration of energy. One of the great things about when planets station is we can concentrate on them very strong with a lot of strength. And so Mars concentration and his retrograde, when he turns retrograde, it becomes internal. So this Mars retrograde, this stationary retrograde, which is really kind of the whole month. Again, you see he starts at 3:32 and then 9 days later, he barely hits 4 degrees. And then by the end of the month, he's still, he's about 1 degree. So he starts to move a little bit by the end of the month. But through like the 21st, he's about 3 degrees the whole time. And then moving retrograde on the 10th, it shows that enormous discipline. It's time to be really disciplined. Discipline is everything when it comes to spiritual life. We all know what we should do. We all know what's right. We just don't do it. And Mars lets us do it right now. Get up early. Eat the right food. Do the postures. Do the thing that makes you strong. Again, the reason we don't is because it's hard. We're supposed to keep that Mars to ourselves, which is the difficulty. It's hard to do it, but we should do the hard thing, not burden other people with it, not burden other people with hardship by arguing with them or telling them what they should do right. We should do what we know is right, but it's hard. So Mars gives us the power to suffer for our principles and what we know is right. So this is huge for September. It's a great opportunity. And again, the people that don't are just going to be frustrated, bouncing off the walls, fighting with everybody, fighting with themselves, fighting, you know, I see so many people now, and, you know, I'm not innocent either of just venting frustrations like online and all this stuff all the time, arguing. Especially in the name of higher spiritual practices and stuff. When we're really connected to the heart, which Mars really helps us do, because when we become disciplined, we connect with that which is transcendent. And then we're in that space that's not in this world of frustration. Mars is just the energy and the courage. Once the courage is turned inward, true courage, then we connect to the heart and it all opens up from there. Then we're not dealing with frustration and stuff. It's just Mars is the courage to get us moving in the right direction. And that's what Mars is, the direction. What direction are we moving? What are we moving toward? And how much are we willing to work for it? Very powerful. So the last planet I'll talk about here is Saturn. And of course, Saturn is also going to be hanging out at this same degree. He's been retrograde in Capricorn. And he turns direct on the 29th. And he's, hang on, let me take a quick drink of water here. "45 minutes without water." So a lot of comments here. I haven't been looking at the comments. I'm just kind of getting through this, but let me go back here. So this Saturn is also really powerful. Look at all the powerful planets that we have for most of the month. Saturn in Capricorn. I'm just going to go back here real quick. The Sun in Leo, Mars in Aries, Jupiter in Sagittarius, and Saturn in Capricorn. 4 planets in their own signs. Folks, we got the power here. This is the wisdom and the power of these planets. And I say power I know I might say the word power a lot, but the pure version of it, which means the purity of Saturn, is that willingness to sacrifice and endure and introspect and commit and not give up just because it's hard. And all of those things that, again, Mars gives us the willingness to suffer for our principles through our actions in the moment. Because it's hard to do the right thing. We want to do what's easy. We'd rather eat a lot of food that tastes good and not eat the right amount of food and that's healthiest for us. But if we're willing to suffer a little bit in the moment, we're going to be stronger. Well, Saturn gives us the power and the determination to do that a long time, to keep doing it, not just do it once and act like we did some miraculous thing. "Oh, I got up and meditated today. Yay!" Mars feels good. He does, and it's great. But Saturn says, well, so what? You should do it every day. Get up tomorrow, the next day. This is your routine. This is what you should be doing all the time. So Saturn gives the commitment to say this is worth sacrificing for a long time. And all the great things in your life that you've ever accomplished because you were willing to sacrifice, not just once, not just do it once. Anybody can do it once. And we do it once whether we want to or not sometimes because we make ourselves sick. So we have to be disciplined once in a while. But Saturn says this is the thing you need to be doing all the time. And so Saturn in Capricorn, which is the sign that he rules, is very connected to that introspection, stillness, commitment, solitude, silence, peace, that is able to sit with these unpleasant truths and these difficult things that, again, most of the time we're just trying to feel good and trying to be happy, and it's all just emotional, and we're not able to endure difficulty. Human beings, our mind is so weak. We're just trying to be happy all the time, and oh, but it doesn't feel good. Oh, I can't do it. You know, one of the biggest things is we're lazy. and we don't realize, like, we're just trying to constantly avoid pain in any way, even if it's not that painful, just painful introspection, painful silence. Oh, I can't meditate. As soon as I sit down, so we have to distract ourselves just in the hopes that something might feel uncomfortable. Well, I can't even do it. It might even feel uncomfortable, so I won't do it. But again, Saturn gives us the commitment to do those things, even though we know it's going to be a little difficult. It's going to be worth it. It's rewarding. And it's worth, again, sacrificing and working hard for. So as it relates to the way I see things now, I think as we're going forward, and again, Saturn is going to be in Capricorn until early 2022, and then he goes into Aquarius. But it's been going backwards. And so, it's showed a lot of control structures. Again, as it relates to something like COVID, for example, the whole world pretty much adapted really well with the COVID mandate to, like, go home, sit in your house, go to your room and flatten this curve, and then be vigilant and be focused and concentrate. The whole world did a great job. My country, the United States, didn't, because we have a lot of people who just think something else. I'll say it like that. And we didn't get it under control like that. Saturn moving forward is going to bring, again, more control. It's going to be more of a controlling environment again. And I think we can see what's going to be happening socially, at least, is that kids going back to school and these issues, perhaps this is going to really demand that people really button down and get this tackled and get this handled now. And those who maybe didn't take it so seriously the first time will take it more seriously now, especially as we have flu season coming and other things. Again, that could be one of the social ramifications as Saturn. Again, it's been in Capricorn the whole time, so we felt this, and it went into Capricorn at the end of January. So right when all this COVID stuff hit, Saturn moved from Sagittarius into Capricorn. And it's like within a month and a half or so, 2 months, actually no more than that, we were locked in our house. And then Jupiter went back into Sagittarius. Most of the world, this was around the end of June, then most of the world actually started getting back out again and living again. The US kind of did it, but then again, we never got the thing under control. Then it started to spike again, and then we've just been back and forth. But again, I think Saturn moving forward again, especially returning to these degrees where he first went in, is going to impose that boundary on us again. And again, we also see a lot of these impositions socially with things that could be coming up, like with elections and stuff. That's the following month, and that's down the road. And I'm going to be talking more about those kinds of things and those kinds of limitations. But again, in a larger sense, in a more spiritual, cosmic sense, Saturn is about self-control and managing our fears. And again, like I said before, as a tamasic planet, we're supposed to keep that to ourselves. We're supposed to manage our own fear. We're supposed to control ourselves. We're supposed to have enough self-control to not just be triggered and try to control external circumstances or people. This is what gets us into trouble with Saturn when he's weak, especially, that when we get triggered, we try to control external situations or people, or we get triggered and paranoid. And a lot of that fear of wearing masks and fear of being dominated and fear of the conspiracy hangs out in Saturn energy as well. And I think it really has played into a lot of the ideas around, again, that it's not a mask, it's a set of chains or whatever it is, of people who don't want to wear masks, or they think it's a hoax, like with a virus. And it's just prolonged it. It's prolonged it because it's not like we have to speculate. We can see, we have a model around the world. There's like every developed country and then the United States. And they all did this thing, and we didn't. They did the Saturn thing. And by the way, that's why I made the prediction when it happened that we're all going to be locked away for a while. It's going to be a real intense Saturn Saturn, Mars, and Jupiter in Capricorn time. Yes, that's what we're going to get. But we're going to get it under control. We'll get through it. We'll get it under control, and then we'll be dealing with it for like a year and a half or 2 years at least. And that's what happened everywhere except the United States. Because people were, in many ways, frankly, responding to the way the president was acting about it. Like, oh, it's no big deal. It's a hoax, and it's this and that. And let's everybody get back quick. Let's get out and let's go to church. He was saying that in April, for example. And that's just not honoring the Saturn directive. Everybody wants to go out and play. Nobody wants to be locked in their house. Not now, not then. Nobody wants it. Nobody wants it. But Saturn was saying, you need to do this now for a while. This is a disease. It has an asymptomatic spread. We don't know who has it. It could overwhelm the systems. It's highly contagious and can be very fatal to certain people. This is about the only thing we can do right now. Let's just bite the bullet and do it. Boom, Saturn stuff. Do it. So him going forward again, I have a feeling that in September, he goes forward around the end of September. Then, of course, October, November, we might be dealing with another big wave. Again, this will be like flu season because this is going direct. Saturn goes direct. He's retrograde through September until the last day, or on the 29th, almost the last day. He'll be going forward again, and then I have a feeling we're going to get another imposed lockdown because it could be another reemergence, or maybe because flu season, it could just be really intense again for the U.S. And not just for the U.S., but for other parts of the world as well, because that's going to happen. But again, in the midst of all of that, aside from the social parts, our job and our, on a spiritual level, this is very powerful. It really is. I don't know if you felt it, but, I have Saturn and Capricorn on my natal chart, so I don't mind it. But, I've really felt the joy and the bliss of that simplicity, that commitment, that, especially with meditations and stuff. Right now, if you can tune into that stillness and silence and peace in your mind, there's so much benefit. There's so much connection that's just available and ready and open to you right now. This whole Saturn and Capricorn, it's a 2 year, it's like a 2.5 year, almost 3 year transit. And it's, as it's slowing down and really being concentrated now, don't waste the opportunity of just being triggered on all kinds of fears and things that you can't control or anything like that. Tune into that stillness and silence and peace, which is the real glory of Saturn. And especially Saturn in Capricorn, which is basically, in many ways, kind of shattering your world, shattering the illusion that you're going to live forever, or shattering the illusions, the immature notions. This has been one of the hardest things, is people having to wake up to this idea. The problem with having to stay home, it's like, oh, I have to now stay home and face myself. Why is it so hard to stay home? Actually, it didn't change much for me. I stay home all the time anyway. I love being alone. I love going out too, but it's that whole, why are we so frustrated and worried that we have to stay home and be alone? It's beautiful. Yogis on the Himalayas love it. You can grow to love it too. Tune into that stillness and silence and peace. And so again, I just want to leave you very, the last thing again, to check out that class on the nodes, because it's a really great way for you to learn about how this transit of Rahu and Ketu through Taurus and Scorpio will be for you, and also the eclipses, the history lesson, all that stuff. And I hope this was helpful for you to hear